Me too. Okay. One of the fundamental sources, or the fundamental source of all the systems of yoga, because there are different systems of yoga, is a body of literature that's originally present in sound vibration, according to those texts themselves. Now they're written, but those sound vibrations exist before the universe exists. That's pretty old. And after some time, that sound vibration, by cycles of time, needed to be written down because people's memories were not so good. So they're written in a Sanskrit form. And according to those ancient texts, there's different categories of sound. We'll get into it as we go forward. But there's material sound, and there's then more subtle than material sound is spiritual sound. And so that's the topic. And to give credit where credit is due, there's a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, who is a Sanskrit scholar, among other things. His name is Banuswami. And Banuswami made a presentation. This is his title slide. He very kindly supplied me with his presentation. I've modified it a bunch, but it's Mysteries of Sound. So we'll take a little journey through the mysteries of sound, and it's quite mysterious, material and spiritual sound. So these are the topics. Could you adjust so it's square? What's it called? Ah. Yeah, that little bit more. Okay. What is sound? Why do some sounds affect our being much more deeply than others? And specifically also, at the end, why is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra so effective in transforming material consciousness? So I'm going to be making some references from different sources. And just a very simple one for starters is my and Kanka's teacher, and Jagadrini's teacher too, Srila Prabhupada. The focus isn't great. Can we fix the focus? What's that? Well, I can read it from my screen, but if they can read it from their seat, that would be even. You can see? Oh, great. Okay, you guys are good. The beginning of this material world is from sound vibration. I think the scientists also agree, the materialistic scientists, that from sound everything emanates. Now there's some documents that go along with this presentation that I didn't think in advance to circulate, so I'll have to do it afterwards. Who gets those, the people that are here that are interested, a little background, can receive it? Who do I send it to? I'll send it to you and you see that he gets it, okay? Okay. So this is the starting point. Sound is the beginning. So sound is the symptom of the sky. Now this is, as you see across the bottom, this is an extract from a lecture. from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1972. The same place that she spoke about, the farm community in West Virginia. Sound is a symptom of the sky. By sound, we can understand that there is sky or ether. Then, by sound vibration, there is a circulation of air. You have got practical experience. When there is very loud sound vibration, sometimes there's very strong wind also. So by sound vibration, the wind is started, and by strong wind, electricity is produced. From electricity, water is produced, perspiration, and from water, earth is produced. This is a description of the unfolding of the elements from Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga. So sound is the original element of creation. In Sanskrit language, it is called Shabda. Brahma. Shabda means sound. Shabda. Brahma. Brahman, or the absolute truth is, first appears. Absolute truth becomes knowable by sound. In Bhagavad Gita it is said, the Lord says, Rasoham apso kaunteya prabhasmi sachi suryayo shabda ke. Shabda means sound. Shabda means sound. If we want to see God, let us hear first of all the sound vibration, because that is the beginning. Now, there's a PDF that goes along with this that I'll see that you get a copy of. And it's some references from the Vedas, these ancient texts, that say the same thing. That is, Om, the connection between that sound vibration, Om, and creation. So I'll say it again. Before the creation, there's the sound. And then by the sound agitating the subtle features of matter, matter starts to unfold, and then we get creation. And after some time, the creation collapses back again into the subtle, most subtle, and the unmanifest state of creation. Now, how do we know these things? We know these things from the Vedas. And if one doesn't accept the authority of the Vedas, then there isn't a way of experimenting to find out. Here's a very simple understanding from Bhagavad Gita. What existed, that logic is very simple. What existed before we existed, we can't know because it existed before we existed. Chapter 10, Bhagavad Gita. Is it possible to know what existed before you existed? Yes, if that which existed before you existed discloses. And then you can know, and that's what the Vedas are. Veda is sound from that source that existed before we existed, before creation existed. And through that sound, it's disclosed what's the source, what existed before the creation existed. Let's say it the other way. If one doesn't have access to that sound, to the Vedas, then there isn't a way by experimentation to know what existed. To know, you can guess, but you can't know what existed before you existed. So through that source, through the Vedic source, the sound Om is primordial, and from that sound vibration, as we just heard up above in the first paragraph, the unfolding of the elements of creation take place. So that's kind of an introduction. So mysteries of sound, part one. There's what does modern science say about material sound? And what empirical data do they have to support what they say about material sound? So here's one. This is from an article, The Power of Sound. Whether or not we hear it, everything has a sound, a vibration all its own. So what is sound, anyways? Sound is vibration, and then that vibration moves something like air, and then when the air moves, it carries the sound, and the sound hits your eardrum and it registers with your nervous system. Something goes to the brain that says, aha, sound. So before the thing hits your eardrum, there's a vibration. And the science of sound is everything has a vibration. We'll see as we go forward. Each part of our bodies has its own natural frequency. And vibrational medicine is based on the idea that disease is a result of those natural frequencies getting out of tune, whether due to stress, illness, or environmental factors. So what they've done, modern science, is on the left is a list, not so easily viewable because of contrast of light and so on, but it's parts of the body, the brain, the heart, spinal column, blood circulation, etc., where there's a frequency listed on the right. And the frequency that's listed on the right is in hertz. Now, what's this vibrate? There was a gentleman named, a Swiss researcher, whose last name was Hertz, and he, through his studies, he came to verify through science, and again and again and again it's been subsequently done, that with certain frequencies of vibration, so that the standard is now in so many hertz, because named after him, each part of the body has a certain healthy or normal or range of frequency. And I'm not carrying it with me right now, but something that I use on a regular basis is based on that. It's called the Healy. Anybody know about the Heelys? You know about them. Okay. You use it. I use it regularly. It's based on the same principle. There's a scientist devotee who understands the science, and he has made a business out of it. So there's programs that you can put on your phone, and then you program this machine, and you select the program that you want. And so, for example, it can vibrate according to the chakras of the body, or the organs of the body, or more subtle things, the moods and emotions within the mind, and so forth and so on. But it's based upon the principle that everything, not only the organs of the body, but everything has a frequency. Everything in the universe has a vibration or frequency. Our physical bodies, every flower, plant, tree, and mineral have their own specific vibration. The fact that everything is in a state of vibration means that everything is creating sound. Even a rock makes a sound. It's just that it is too subtle to be heard by the human ear, which is generally capable of hearing frequencies between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. So here's a little chart showing what the human ear can hear. So the human ear is between 20 and 20,000. Elephants and moles can hear a little bit of what humans can hear, and a bunch of slower or shorter frequencies than what the human can hear. And dogs and cats can hear the human range plus. And then way over here, dolphins and bats, they can hear frequencies that we can't hear. So what this says in the circle is the same thing, that everything, the human range is from here to here, commonly. You know, some people can hear more, some people can hear less, but And then this down here describes the gentleman that these hertz were named after. A scientist that electromagnetic frequencies were measured consistently over several decades, and so that frequency range took its name based upon this researcher, Mr. Hertz, or Dr. Hertz. Unwanted, unrestricted sound is noise. And there are lots of sounds we don't hear because they're out of the range of our frequency of what human ear can hear. So modern science says this one. Astronomers announced 2005 that the sound waves that rang in the early universe sculpted a structure. That is, we'll see as we go along, sound, material sound, and spiritual sound has form. It's not just a vibration that does something to your nervous system. It has form, and that form sculpted the universe. The early universe rang with the sound of... Now, this is their good guess because they weren't around when this happened. And they can't use their theory to create a universe also. So it's not observable. It's their theory. The early universe rang with the sound of countless cosmic bells, which filled the primordial darkness with ripples like the surface of a pond pounded by stones. Anyway, this is their idea of how the universe took its shape. And then a little bit later, we're going to hear some recorded sound. You see, there's a plant, and there's some microphones, and the plant is going to make a sound that says, "I'm thirsty." When plants are cut, or when plants are not given sufficient water, not the human ear, but this microphone, that with this, by transforming it in different technology methods, one can hear the sound of a plant letting you know that it's thirsty. And I hope it works. It's saying, I'm in stress, I'm dehydrated, I hurt, and please do something. Now, it's not a normal language, but it's a sound vibration. In the year 2014, there's no recording of this one, but in Sweden, there's some scientists who captured the sound of an atom. No, because what is sound? It's vibration. And now, what goes on inside an atom? There's particles that are moving around, and that's vibration, and that makes a sound. So the principle is everything produces sound. A rock, a wall, a tree, or water, or anything, everything is in a state of vibration, and that vibration creates a sound. And these scientists claim that they were able to perceive the sound of an atom. And here's another recording. This is a very interesting one. NASA made a recording. Now, I don't know enough about all this, how this works, but their study is there's plasma, waves of plasma that slam into the magnetic field of the Earth, and they recorded the sound. So here's what it sounds like. Now that's in a frequency that the human ear cannot hear, but apparently they have a way of detecting that sound. With our ears we cannot hear, but they could hear through different instruments and then recorded the sound. The human sense of hearing, this is these scientists, the human sense of hearing is an amazing tool. A magnetosphere expert at Imperial College London said, "We're essentially trained from birth to recognize patterns and pick out different sound sources." Now, what they're saying, you'll see in a while, it's almost the same as what the Vedas say about sound. Sound, according to the Vedas, conveys the idea of a thing, and sound indicates a source that we cannot necessarily see, but it indicates the source through sound. Okay. Modern science, this is continuing. Modern science and technology are helping us listen to sounds beyond the human range and to understand how sounds in certain frequencies can benefit the human body and mind. So this is now going into sound and health or healing. They call it sound therapy. I showed you that healing. Its vibration can help sound. The principle is they're parts of the body, and gross and subtle, meaning the mind, that when they're operating properly, they're within a certain frequency range. When they're not operating properly, they're out of that range. So sound vibration can help them become adjusted to be again in the proper range and thus healthy. Here's their little definition of how their system works. Sound therapy is a revolutionary approach to medical treatment and prevention, transforming the current treatment landscape. The therapy is based on the notion of resonance. Typically, in homeostasis, electromagnetic fields surrounding the body and all organs, bones, cells, tissues, and liquids have a healthy vibration frequency. Sound wave treatment induces profound relaxation, which facilitates the healing of emotional anguish and scars. Sound therapy helps a person release fear, so it's subtle as well as gross, your bones and your blood and your everything. Okay, so it goes on. Sound therapy is a science. Deepak Chopra is an advocate, and along with just sound, here's something about material sound. The musical scale has frequencies. Just a little anecdotal sharing on this point. When I was growing up, I was the youngest of 5 children. I had 3 sisters that were older than me, and 2 of those 3 sisters liked piano. So my parents bought them a piano. And one of the things that if you buy a piano, at least maybe it'd be different, it's different now, but at that time you had to have a piano tuner come every couple of years and make sure it was in tune. So being a little curious boy, I watched when the piano tuner came, how he was going to do his thing. So when he came into the house, he was carrying a case that looked like a guitar case. But when he opened it up, it wasn't a guitar. It had 2 things. It had tuning forks. Tuning forks? Everyone knows tuning forks. Yes? Okay. Tuning forks and a little rubber mallet. And so he took out, let's say, C. And I watched him. He opened up the back of the piano where the piano chords are, and he struck the C tuning fork with his little rubber mallet, and it started to vibrate. And he didn't touch the tuning fork to the piano cord or piano wire. He just held it near. And as he held it near, that piano chord, not the ones to the left or to the right, but only that one started to vibrate. And if it was in tune, then as the vibrations would be, harmonic convergence at different sectors of the chord. And if it was out of tune, it would then he would know to tighten it or loosen it or whatever, until he got it to that was at the right frequency. And he put the C tuning fork back and took the next one and did, went through the whole scale with a whole bunch of tuning forks. So the principle that I understood and repeating is each note of the musical scale has a frequency. And when the scale or the piano or any instrument is in proper frequency balance, it makes a certain sound. So they measured what those sounds are, the C note in the different octaves, and what the frequency is. And you put all that together and you can get healing. There's a system, one of many, where chakras can be indicators of health or something's wrong with the body based upon sound. You see on the right side, solfeggio frequencies. That's a certain type of healing. Now, it sounds like an Italian name. I don't know the details, but there are certain notes that correspond with the chakras, and by vibrating those sounds near each of the chakras, it helps bring the chakra in balance and it helps to heal the body. Or, depending upon which of the chakras, the mind. Or the throat chakra, the voice. It helps to heal the body. There's a yogi in Mysore, India, that I heard about, and I also met someone who went there. And the guy's really popular because he heals diseases through chakra sounds that other modalities of healing haven't worked. And the whole big range of things that he has miraculously been able to heal. At least one person said the man is a multi-billionaire because it works. So if you ever have an illness that you can't find someone that can treat, that's a place you can try. Mysore. Apparently it's a big place because it works. So that's sound and medicine. Then brain waves. So that becomes more like that's the hardware, but then there's the software, because brain waves, on the left it shows the chart of what frequencies they work. For example, the top is the frequency in deep sleep. And just below that is light sleep. And just below that is awake state. And even below that is deep meditation. And there's a certain frequency for that deep meditation. There's the deep meditation, a relaxed state, that's the alpha waves. I'll just mention it, we'll see it again. Alpha waves, or the state of deep meditation, the brain waves when one is in a deeply meditative state, is the same as the frequency of the Earth planet. So yogis were fond of going into the forest or jungle or within nature to do their meditation and do their yoga practice, because it was the same frequency as a deeply meditative brainwave state. It was supportive and sympathetic. Okay, so the text here, brain wave frequencies can be altered by external stimuli, with sound or music being the most interesting. One British neurologist said our auditory systems, our nervous systems are tuned for music. Perhaps we are a musical species no less than a linguistic one. So sound can affect the mind. And when the mind is affected by sound, it registers differently by brain waves. So that's a big part of music therapy, healing through sound. Maybe some of you know about this. Pete Seeger was at least an exponent of this. And it helps. Now, another topic about this is still in the field of material sound. This material sound creates shapes, or has shape. So there's a field called cymatics. You'll hear some more about it. But here's a gentleman that's going to demonstrate through sound how sound makes shape. It has three things. There's a surface that can vibrate by agitation of the surface through sound. And then there's a thing that creates the sound. And then there's some powder. It's just powder through a, whatever you call it. So there's two parts. It's just powder randomly put. Now he's going to make the surface vibrate. Change it 3 times. And you see the powder's jumping around and jumping around. And it forms a shape. Now this is manually making that surface vibrate, and it has a geometric pattern that looks, in this case, looks like this. And you can see on the wall there's framed pictures of the same thing that's done with different vibrational frequencies, making different shapes. The idea is sound has form, material sound has form. And when you put different material sounds together, it makes music. And they have found that different music can have different impact on not only the body, but also the mind. And certain types of classical music, they're very good for healing because it reduces stress and it reduces cortisol. Cortisol is something that the body releases when there's panic or fear, or the fight or flight stimulates the organs of the body and everything gets ramped up. So if you want somebody that's stressed out to get de-stressed, then certain types of classical music are very helpful for healing the body, or when somebody has to have a procedure that requires a sedative, it reduces the need of the sedative just by sound. And then the body can heal better. And the opposite is true, the quality of the sound, if it's hard rock or loud and intense sounding music, it increases the cortisol level. And it's associated with negative emotions. But when cortisol ramps up a whole bunch, then it becomes addictive, like caffeine or any other kind of addiction. It can make one addicted to that kind of sound. So people get a rush and they go from one rock concert to the next because it's addictive, because of the increase of the cortisol level. So sound affects the body and sound affects the mind. They'll go a little bit into the concept of sound that's found in Bhagavad Gita. Many of you are familiar with these modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And sound from one source, the next source, and the next source has different effects on your emotion and what you do when you feel that emotion. It's not only the human body that has a nervous system. There's plants. The plants don't have ears, they don't have brains, they don't have a nervous system, but music affects plants. In fact, it affects life of all kinds. So they've done studies where they play music of classical music style, and plants flourish, and the hard rock kind of music, and plants wither, and many will die. And it doesn't take a long time, according to the studies that have done, several hours of intense hard music, then plants wither. And several hours of exposing plants to very nice sound, they call it Gandharva Veda music, makes them grow nicely. Another study altogether is down at the bottom, published in Harper and Row, that plants hearing nice music, the plants not only grow towards the speaker, but they embrace the speaker. And take that same plant and change the sound vibration, it becomes hard rock music, and the plant tilts away from the speaker in just a few hours. Interesting, huh? So then what to speak of other forms of life besides human forms of life that have ears and a nervous system and a brain? So naturally, this is what happens. They test rats. In Tokyo University, they tested rats. And one of the things they did is they did some heart surgery where they injected some tissue within the body of the rat and then played different types of music to see what would happen. And what it was just material sound. That here it says the name of a certain Irish singer that sang Mozart sonatas and things like that, and or sang along with that type of music. And they did far better than those that heard monotonous music or no music at all. And the foreign tissue that was injected within the body, it was eliminated by nice music. Oh, poor rats, but that's what they did. They found that sound affects the IQ of mice. Now, how do you test the IQ of mice? They have a maze, and on the other end of the maze is some cheese. And how to get the cheese. They can smell the cheese, but how to get it. So that takes some intelligence. And they found when they used the hyperactive music, then they got bewildered. They couldn't find the cheese. And the ones that played nice music, they quickly went to the result. In fact, in some cases, by the hard, heavy music, they became cannibalistic. They started eating each other instead of finding the cheese. So people that listen to that kind of music may have a problem in their relationships with other people. At least if that's the case with mice and rats. This is the final slide on the material sound and science. There's a thing, it's called Schumann's resonance. It probably has to do with the Dr. Schumann, who found out what's the resonance factor of the Earth planet itself. In short, it's the same frequency of the Earth as that of the brain waves that are in a meditative state, 7.83 hertz, or plus or minus a little bit. So it's the vibration frequency of the Earth, and they measure it, and there's different ways they measure it. It has to do with, as you see in the illustration, that's lightning. There's some statistic that the Earth planet is experiencing lightning 90 times every hour or something like that, and that helps give us charge to the Earth, and then the atmosphere surrounding the Earth, the ionosphere, et cetera, they can measure all these things. And the Earth planet, in a balanced state, has a 7.83 hertz vibrational frequency. And if it's too high or too low, then the Earth is damaged, and it doesn't function as well as if it's in the normal range. Okay, so that's the end of this section, which is saying, in summary, everything without exception in creation has a vibrational frequency. There's a normal vibrational frequency range, and that principle can help in the well-being of Earth, and the well-being of a person, and the well-being of your body, the well-being of your mind. And the opposite is also true. An imbalance makes for an unhealthy body or mind. So it has a lot to do with healing and wellness and a holistic lifestyle. Okay. Now, what does science have to say about spiritual sound? That's how to measure. It's hard to measure the impact on the mind with spiritual sound. The essence of material sound, spiritual sound, is mantra. You all know the meaning. Man is the indication of mind, and tra means to free the mind, specifically free the mind from suffering. So mantra has that spiritual effect. We spoke a little bit before about the sound Om, and you see down in the lower right, there's the Bhagavad Gita verse where Krishna is saying that the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, he is that sound in ether, and the syllable Om in Vedic mantras. Here's a recording, hopefully it works, of just the sound of Om, of course, accompanied by some nice music. And back to something that we said before, that sound vibration that you're hearing is primordial. It exists before we exist. It exists before creation. And by the vibration of that spiritual sound of Om, one can connect with the primordial existence that's beyond matter, the manifest state of matter, the unmanifest state of matter. It's the primordial spiritual existence through sound. That's the impact of chanting Om or any spiritual sound. So this is from a website that goes on for 3 hours. And if you're interested, I can provide you with the link. So it's just an extract from that. And all of Vedic mantras begin with either the syllable Om or some similar sound. It's called Klim Bija sound, and all Vedic mantras begin with it. There's another PDF I'll make available to you at the end of this, where the sound of Omkar and Vishnu are identical. I'll say it again. Vishnu, that's the form of the Paramatma, the Lord of the heart, and the sound Om, they're identical. They're interchangeable. There's a factor of non-difference between, and that sound that you're hearing is within the soul. It's already there within the soul, and by hearing that sound, it's like the tuning forks and the piano keys. You vibrate the tuning fork, and the piano string will vibrate. This sound awakens the consciousness of the living entity just by hearing the spiritual sound. And here's a nice painting. You'll see a little bit more about this in a moment. That's a painting of Lord Brahma hearing this sound of Krishna's flute, and as the sound of Krishna's flute entered his ear, it came out of his mouth in the form of a mantra, which also has form. You'll see this shortly. So here's a gentleman that was kind of the pioneer in this field of cymatics, and his name is Dr. Hans Jenny. He's from Switzerland, and he made about 30 years of study of sound and the form of sound. So the machine that he has, he gave it a name, a tonoscope, and it has 3 parts. There's something that makes the sound. There's a channel that directs the sound to a vibrating surface. There's his vibrating surface here. And then powder on the vibrating surface. Same as what you saw before. Only this isn't rubbing something on that surface, it's just sound hitting that surface and then watching what happens and taking photographs of it. So the photograph up here is the photograph of when he directed the sound Om to this vibrating surface. And it created this pattern. The pattern that was created is the pattern of a Shri Yantra. What's a Shri Yantra? Shri Yantra is a 2-dimensional depiction of the spiritual world, or the Vaikuntha realm in 2 dimensions. Here's the actual photograph in color, and it's a 2-dimensional depiction of the 18-syllable mantra, that same mantra that came out of Brahma's mouth when he heard Krishna's flute. I'll do it again. Here's that same painting. This is Brahma hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, and from his mouth came a mantra. How he processed that sound was it came out in the form of a mantra. And the process of his realization before the universe was created, resting upon that sound, is he chanted that mantra while meditating on a yantra. That's a yantra. It's like a 2-dimensional depiction of the spiritual realm. And within the mantra, this is in Sanskrit, this is the Klim, or the Bija mantra, and then the 6 sides of the mantra that he was chanting in Sanskrit. And it's depicting, if you read in Brahma Samhita, the 3rd text, it's describing the abode of Krishna in 2 dimensions. So he meditated on this yantra while he chanted the mantra and became well acquainted with the spiritual realm, and then wrote and spoke this Brahma Samhita. So it's a process of yoga, very early in the stage of creation. Very qualified person, Brahma, just hearing sound, then he became well acquainted with the spiritual realm and his service of creating the universe, so he took that sound and created the universe with it. That's the description in Brahma Samhita. Here's similar, it's photographs of music scale and the shape that sound creates using the cymatics method. So you'll go back to Dr. Jenny, and his machine generated the C frequency or a C sharp and a D flat, etc., and took a photograph of what was generated, and that's the photograph. And the message is, each note of the musical scale has form. When you're hearing music, you don't necessarily translate it in your mind or otherwise that sound has form, but it has form. That's material sound, and then there's spiritual sound. According to the same science, this is Vedic science, the universe itself, we already heard from modern science, there's a certain 7.83 hertz is the vibrational frequency of the earth, and there's a vibrational frequency of the universe, which also has form, as each note of the musical scale has form. This is a diagram from the Vedas of a two-dimensional depiction of the geometry of the universe. Just as sound moves with symmetry, and then that sound can generate a two-dimensional yantra, so also this is the depiction of the two-dimensional depiction of the universe that's generated from sound. So mysteries of sound is our topic. Quite mysterious. But it's, to some degree it's understandable and some degree measurable. Music in general is just notes strung together in a certain pattern, and it makes something pleasing. If it's done nicely, it's pleasing. And in the Vedic conception, some of you may know, there's ragas, or there's a combination of notes that's particularly appropriate for different times of the day. For example, in our centers, we have songs that we sing according to the morning raga. Samsaradava naladida loka. That's a raga. And raga, collections of sounds in certain patterns, creates a mood, an emotion in the mind and in the heart. And those that are very, very experienced in the science of raga not only know which notes make which raga, they also know that there's a personality of each raga. And they know the mantra that depicts that personality of the raga, and when they perform music according to the science of raga, they meditate on that mantra. And if they're really good, and the person hearing, they can hear the raga and envision the personality of the raga. Pretty cool. So what's pictured here, this is Pingala raga, is a certain raga that is, the mantra shows it's Radha Krishna on a swing. There's a certain, I don't know the science of it, but there are ragas that have mantras, and the mantra depicts the personality of the raga, sometimes male, sometimes female. And those that are very, very accomplished, it has power if they're accomplished at the raga and the receiver is also, a good receiver. Here's something also very interesting. This I learned from Bhanu Swami. along with science understanding DNA, through further studies of DNA, they came to find out there's a certain little thing attached to DNA called a telomere, and the strength and the size, etc., of vitality of the telomere does two main things if it's nice. It increases the duration of life and increases health, or being able to heal the body. So once they found out about telomeres, then they started experimenting to find out what makes the telomeres stronger. The lady that discovered telomeres found that if you exercise for 15 minutes every day, like vigorous walking, 15 minutes a day, it increases telomeres by 5%. So then it became a popular thing. I mean, not that it wasn't popular before, but it became particularly popular because it was known that it makes your telomeres stronger and you have better health and longevity. It's kind of common sense. And then they started experimenting with other things, like good diet, 5%. Coming together and having fellowship in a community, 5%. Good. Certain kinds of music, 5%. And they found that mantra meditation, they put it in big numbers, 43%. So, my dear friends, if you want strong telomeres, do mantra meditation. Do the other things too, of course, but it is especially effective is mantra meditation. And almost the same as other forms of Sanskrit vibration, because they come from the same source, from the Vedas. So it has greatly beneficial effects. And especially Sanskrit, but in principle, it's the mood, it's the prayerfulness of that activity, and it strengthens telomeres. So that's the study. Now, specifically the Hare Krishna mantra, because that was the second slide that I showed you. There was a PhD program done by a nice individual at the University of Florida in Gainesville. It took him 3 years. And when you do a PhD thesis or PhD study, you have a bunch of other PhDs overseeing what you're doing, so you can't just wing it. And in short, with their supervision and the statistics department, and the procedure that he followed was this and that and the other thing, so it wasn't cheating. The Hare Krishna mantra, compared to other by name mantras or a placebo group that really wasn't just, it was just gobbledygook syllables, the Hare Krishna mantra was most effective in these three areas. Reducing stress, reducing tendency for depression and anxiety, and reducing addictions of different kind, drug addiction and other addictions. So Hare Krishna Mahamantra was found to be very helpful, and it made suggestions for further research in that field. And although it says part 2, I'm almost done. There's a conception of sound, just in general, material and spiritual, found within the Vedas. And the main source of that Vedic description of sound is in a section of the Vedas called Sankhya. Sankhya Yoga? Yes? Sankhya Yoga? Some are nodding, some don't know what I'm talking about. Sankhya is a type of yoga, and it's specifically categories of matter, categories of spirit, analyzing categories of matter, analyzing categories of spirit, and reaching the conclusion we belong to the category of spirit. There's coverings, gross bodies and subtle bodies, coverings, and that's not us. So Sankhya is a science of teaching us who we are through that analytical method. And according to this system of Sankhya, here's a text that says sound basically is defined by three characteristics. One, already mentioned, it conveys an idea of an object. It indicates the presence of a source of sound that we're not able necessarily to see, but it conveys the presence of that source of sound. And it also says it's the subtle form of ether or sky. The Sanskrit word is akash. It's form, sound, spiritual and material. That's a Vedic definition of sound. So through language, we make sounds, we say things, and it conveys a meaning of something. Sound is a fundamental principle and is considered to be the source of matter and the key to become free from matter. That's spiritual sound. Both mental and physical realms are connected to that sound or etheric sound, that which carries an idea of something. Sound is simultaneously a vibration in a mental realm. That's the idea that you can convey through sound. And it strikes the mind, and then you get an idea through sound. I think I'm going to go quickly to get to this chart because of time. So here's a chart that shows consciousness and how sound affects, starting with the ear. And when the ear picks up a sound, it sends a signal to the mind. In the mind, okay, I hear a sound. And then the intellect tries to distinguish what is that sound, what is its source, etc. So the discerning faculty, the intellect. And both material and spiritual sound go through these three phases or layers of consciousness. But then spiritual sound goes to another. This word para means spiritual, or indicates transcendental consciousness or the soul. And in short, spiritual sound goes directly to the soul. Just like when I came in, you were having this nice Hare Krishna Kirtan. So here's a plant in the room. Now the plant was getting para benefit or transcendental benefit just by that sound, although it's just passively sitting there. But according to science, Vedic science, within that plant, as long as there's a soul present, it's alive. And the spiritual sound is going to the para destination, even in a very covered living entity like a plant. And then as consciousness evolves through species, consciousness becomes impacted, at least potentially, can become more and more impacted by spiritual sound up to the human form of life, and then the human form of life more acutely aware of spiritual sound and what it is. So that's the yoga system. It's resting upon, creation is resting upon sound, and in all forms of yoga, there's some type of meditation, and some type of meditation through sound is most effective. Just like I was in upstate New York not too long ago, and before, about 3 weeks ago, I was in Beijing. And we're in a place, really nice place. The owner, it was a traditional, very traditional Chinese man, so all the architecture right in Beijing looked like we're in ancient China. You know, everything was just really nice. And we had a japa retreat in the hall, and at the far end of the hall was a big gong. So we hit the big gong. Boom. And that's a material sound. But it's powerful. It's used in meditation, it's used in Buddhist meditation commonly but other types of meditation, because it helps bring the mind to a peaceful state and a steady state through sound. But it doesn't go to the para stage unless it's spiritual sound. The gong, powerful as it was, to center your mind and your intellect and your ear, it doesn't go directly to the soul, but spiritual sound goes directly to the soul, the place of transcendental consciousness, the seat of transcendental consciousness. And therefore, along with the yoga practice that you do, it's really good, it's advisable to do mantra meditation, because it helps you go directly to what the purpose of yoga is anyways, is to know who you are. And part of knowing, an essential part of knowing who you are, is how you're connected with that which is the source of everything. And the way to make that connection most effectively is through sound. So mantra, along with your yoga practice, is standard and recommended. So there's text that goes along with this, but I think I'm talking too much, so I'll read what it says. It's nice. There are 4 levels of sound that correspond to 4 states of consciousness. This one at the bottom, para, represents the transcendental consciousness. And these others are the intellect, the mind, and the ear, states of consciousness. So you can perceive something that's a conscious state. It can register in the mind. That's this madhyama state. Your intellect can analyze it and try to discern what it is, etc., etc. But para is the transcendental state. Okay, so all of this is taken directly from Srimad Bhagavatam. This chart, and what it's saying on the left side, is from Uddhava Gita. Many of you are familiar with Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaking to Arjuna. Uddhava Gita is Krishna speaking to another cousin, whose name is Uddhava. So it's Uddhava Gita. And this is Krishna's explaining consciousness and how consciousness is impacted by sound. The best of all sound is the spiritual sound, or para sound. And the best of all para sounds is that which directly connects one with the Supreme. So here's a nice, you recognize the photo of Sikandini on the left? That's who it is. And so when the mantra is being chanted, there's a connection. Through sound, there's a connection with Krishna, and there's a connection between Krishna and the chanter. It's a relationship. Yoga is a linking relationship between us and the source. So when chanting the Krishna mantra, that connection is made. The medium, that's teacher. Material sound has us very caught up. Here's, in that same Sankhya section of the Bhagavatam, I'll read it. Our entanglement in material affairs has begun from material sound. Now we must purify that sound in spiritual understanding. There is sound in the spiritual world also. If we approach that sound, then our spiritual life begins, and the other requirements for spiritual advancement can be supplied. Last, final, I think. There's a nice image. There's a full moon reflected on the surface of the water. And what this is saying is, the original sound is spiritual sound. The sound that we experience here is reflection of spiritual sound. The whole of the creation is a reflection of spiritual sound, is a creation of spiritual sound, and the sounds here are reflections of that spiritual sound. Same thing is taught in Bhagavad Gita. Here's a reference from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7. Whatever you hear, whenever you hear some sound, you should know this is vibration of the transcendental sound. The sound which we are vibrating, that is pure spiritual sound. But any sound in the material world, that is a reflection of that spiritual sound. So when you hear sound, you can remember God. That's if you have transcendental consciousness. Okay, I'm going to just go forward and we'll end. Here's a nice image of someone on the lower right side. He's receiving mantra from his guru. And the young fellow is a cowherd boy named Gopakumar. And by chanting of his mantra, he experiences many, 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 many things. And finally, on the left side, as he makes that connection directly, personally, with Krishna through his mantra. And there's a reunion. That's yoga. So that's spiritual sound and part of the whole picture of this mysteries of sound. Oh, I want to do one more thing. Here's a nice something more. Another recording. This is a nice image of Prabhupada. Some nice soft music in the background. And we'll hear him slowly, meditatively chanting Maha Mantra. So many of you like yoga, so if you want to, you can chant along with him. Try to sit straight, like you're doing your yoga asanas or something.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Try to give
Hare Ram,
attention to the sound.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
You can chant along with
Hare
me like.
Krishna, Krishna Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
As I mentioned, when I was in Beijing, we conducted a 2-day japa retreat. And at the end, I had many people asking me, can I have this recording? Because I want to do my mantra meditation along with this nice recording. So I made it's a YouTube link. It's audio, but it's a YouTube link. And I got the report back. It really helped them because the sound vibration of a highly elevated conscious person and being able to vibrate along with that highly elevated conscious person helped them. It was nice support. So since you already all, because at the beginning I asked, you all do some type of yoga and add mantra meditation to your yoga, and you'll be glad you did. It'll help your yoga practice. It'll help you achieve the purpose of the yoga practice, the ultimate purpose. It'll make your telomeres stronger too. So let's see if there's some discussion.
Thank you for the wonderful lecture. I was struck by, I know the science behind it, but I'm struck by it. For once, it sounds like spirituality and science actually get along in this topic. And I remember hearing a recording of what it sounds like when you record a black hole. And it sounds a lot like the Om mantra that we were listening to, that deep resonating vowel sound. And to know that the root of all of us is sound is something so subtle, it makes me feel like it might actually be a lot more difficult. I already thought it was going to be difficult, but it might be even more difficult to connect and come
More
to
difficult,
completion.
why?
Well, it's so distracting in this world, and so it just means you have to work even harder. But I'd love your advice on sort of, in a world where so much noise is happening, we have traffic, construction, even birds have changed their migratory paths to avoid us. How do you can't exit this world so much. How do you handle the sound, the noise in this world?
It's definitely a challenge. No doubt about it. But the whole of the yoga process is depending upon consciousness going in stages. The first stage is tolerate. And then the next stage is absorption in that which is beyond the noise. And the more you become absorbed in that which is beyond the noise, you're not attending so much to the noise. You don't place value in it, even it's there. When somebody's really, really, really absorbed in something, you can try to get their attention. And they're really, they're just so absorbed. So, Pram drishtva nivartate, in the language of Bhagavad Gita, when there's a higher taste, the lesser taste pales in its significance. It's not that you don't know that it's there, but it pales in significance when there's something that absorbs you so much. I'm going to tell a little story. Once upon a time, I was a college kid. And the first Krishna conscious literature I got was a Back to Godhead magazine. And it was given to me by another student who's later became Burijan. The first thing I got was a magazine. And I didn't know what the magazine was. I didn't know who I didn't know anything about anything. But I was carrying this magazine around, and one of my friends said, "Oh no, you're not into that, are you?" I didn't even know what it was, but it got me interested enough to read it. And the magazine was really funky. It was mimeographed, with it was stapled together along 3 staples along the side, and that was it. And the feature article was an article by Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhaktisiddhanta is Prabhupada's spiritual master, my spiritual master. And the title of it was, The Bhagavat is ontology and morphology. So I had to look up the title, 3 words of the title. And then the essay was several pages long. And, I was a pre-med student, so I was used to technical stuff, and I, had to look things up and write notes in the margin. And 3 hours passed before I had finished the article. And I didn't know where the time went. I had lost track of, it was really in the moment, right? So, and at the end, I looked at the thing, and I don't know what I understood of it, but one thing I did understand, and that was my consciousness was in a place that I had never experienced before. Because I was hearing the words or receiving the words of a very elevated person. That helped me a lot to appreciate not just, what absorption might look like, but what the world of transcendence might feel like. It was very helpful. So when you're absorbed in spiritual sound, it makes the material sound becomes more distant, faint. It's still there, but you're not tuned into it because you're so much tuned into something else. So that's the answer to your question. It's transcendence by absorption in something that's of the transcendental realm. And it's really good, best, that you do your mantra chanting early in the morning, ideally before the sun rises. Ideally, Brahma Muhurta is 78 minutes before the sun rises. I think that's the number. Anyway. Where the ether is very quiet. So when you absorb your consciousness like that, for as much time as you can early in the morning, because I'm jet lagged. I was up at 1:30 this morning. It was really nice. Really nice. So with absorption. And then that stays with you. So the noise becomes less significant. And the sound vibration is cumulatively day after day after day after week after month after month after year. It has a cumulative purifying effect, and it helps keep your consciousness in that state, and the distractions, not only of material sound, but of material objects and stuff, fades. It's still there. You can still see, hear, etc. But it just becomes less significant impact of your consciousness. The more your consciousness becomes spiritualized, the more the para sound strikes you and enters, you become fixed like that. It's how to navigate in this present age of chaos. Quarrel, noise, pollution, abuse, etc., etc., etc. Yes, you got your microphone.
Thank you, Maharaj. That was really
Different.
inspiring. I just wanted to mention also on her behalf of the question about noise, is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us as a special gift one of the easiest ways to reach that para stage through this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And it's a powerful mantra, just like you said, if you wake up early during the Brahma Muhurta hours, but it can be chanted all day long. It can be chanted at any time, anywhere. And we're so fortunate that this gift was given to us by the prayers of Advaita Acharya, praying and begging Krishna to come, and he came in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By the blessings of Srimati Radharani covering him in his golden form.
Okay, well, you know your audience, you know this audience better than I do, and I was being cautious about not saying too much. Okay, thank you. Yeah, very powerful. Very powerful. Even in the midst of chaos, it can lift one above chaos. At least, over a prolonged period of time. Is anybody here not familiar with Patanjali Yoga Sutras? Not familiar. Okay. Some of you are. It's what she just said from another angle of vision. Patanjali is the authority in Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is the eightfold yoga system. Most of yoga studios and yoga teachers teach from that. So he gave sutras, little codes, explaining how does it work, basically. What is it and how does it work? So when he describes, he gives a definition of yoga practice, and it's really simple, because it's a sutra, there's 3 parts. Something that you do every day, something that you do for a prolonged period of time every day, because it takes a while to detox from removing the coverings of consciousness, of ignorance. And then the third is with some faith that this is going to take me to that good place, to that higher seat of consciousness place. So those 3 things make for practice. And when you practice and practice and practice something that's very powerful like this, it takes you to the good place. It takes you to a place of consciousness where you're not affected as you were before by all the distractions and things, desires and material motions, etc. Yes.
Wow, the mysteries of sound. I really felt you took us through a journey of, like, I won't think of plants the same again, and like watering plants, hearing that sound. And I've always known that sound affects like other living things besides humans, but I really like that description of why and the vibration, because I kind of knew it wasn't just affecting like just the leaves of the plant. But that one slide, I think it was showing that it's like on a soul level, the sound affects every living entity. So I really appreciated that expression. It really, like, I've heard so many things about how sound affects everything, but it really put it all together for me. It was like, I'm not going to think about these things the same again. And the other point, oh, sorry, sound. Oh, the other one about, I kind of had a question. You said something about this, the sound vibration of deep meditation resonating with earth.
Yes.
Because there's something in me that I really do love chanting outside. And you know where we live, it's very remote.
Yes, it's outside.
And there's a big sky. And I've kind of had this like, oh, I should be, sitting properly in a seated spot in front of my altar. But I get like in a deeper state of meditation and chanting outside in the early hours. So were you saying there's something about, there's a connection there? And can you just elaborate on that a little bit about sages out?
Well, sure. The connection is a natural state, and then in front of your altar is a transcendental state, which is beyond natural, or supernatural, or transcendental. So both are good. the practice is attentiveness, attention and absorption. So where does your consciousness go in relation to that sound? And anything that enhances your attentiveness and absorption in sound, do that. And anything that takes away from that, try to diminish it, and if possible, do without it. Change the channel. Cultivate going in the direction of attention and absorption. So both have their place.
Maybe because inside my house there's always so much with family going on. There's noises and it's pulling my attention away. It could be.
Yeah. I mean, one of our, I mentioned Bhaktisiddhanta. So my spiritual master is pictured here. And then his spiritual master, that article that I read, Bhaktisiddhanta. And his father also was a great, 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 great personality, realized soul, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he writes, go take it to an extreme. That is, go to a secluded place where you're not being exposed to those distracting sounds and sights and stuff. And he said, if necessary, put a blindfold on. So you're just not seeing anything. And I know somebody that sits with what people that work in airports, not like on the landing strip, those big things that you can't hear any sound, to protect their ears. So they wear that while they're chanting. So they're just not distracted. I mean, that's pretty extreme. You don't have to do that. But that's so that one can focus. Because when that focus is there of attention and absorption in the sound, then that place of higher consciousness is more accessible. And when you feel that more accessible place of consciousness, it's so attractive. The other pales in its attractiveness or its impact on you. You come closer and closer and closer to self-realization or experiencing who you really are, not just theoretically understanding, but experiencing who you really are through sound. That's nice. So whatever works, going for walks or something. Whatever enhances that attention and absorption, to do more of that. Anything else? Okay. Looks like we're done. Thank you very much. Prabhupada.